the emotion just poured out of me. I started crying, just like, oh my God, they're going to pay me to do this. It was, joyous tears, but I'm sure some of my coworkers came in and thought, oh, great, the new guy's having a breakdown at his desk. I'm comfortable now. Let's hope he's not disgruntled.
I'm all grown up.
Our guest today is a legendary animator, writer, producer, director, surfer, musician, and voice actor known for many animated TV series, but perhaps most famously for one about two stepbrothers who show us what it really means to seize the day. Everyone, please welcome the wonderful Swampy Marsh. Swampy, how you doing today, my man? You've just told me it's a kilt day.
It is a kilt day. I've got the kilt on, man.
Oh, I love it.
My utility kilt. Some days are just kilt days.
I love it. Why not every day? Why not every day?
I don't know why. Some days it's just you look in the closet and go, oh yeah, kilt day.
I'm gonna have to invest in one myself now.
They're nice to wear. Once you start wearing them, you're like, this is really nice.
Yeah, the feeling of freedom.
Yeah, whee! And it's fun when you spin because you get
You get a little. Well, first
I'm feeling extra good today because last night. I found out I missed it, and I usually watch every episode there is when I can. But Phineas and Ferb made it onto Jeopardy again, which makes me deliriously happy.
Oh wow, that's amazing! I gotta find that episode and check it out. That's one I would get right. The first question I want to ask you that I've always wanted to ask you: your son has quite possibly the coolest name in the history of names, Django.
I agree with you. Yeah.
I spent a good amount of my childhood wishing that my parents had named me Django, actually. And so I wanted to ask you, is that because I actually considered just telling people it was my name? Is that because might as well. Is that because you are a huge fan of spaghetti westerns and specifically of the Django franchise?
No, I am. But the reason he's named Django, and this is when my wife was pregnant with Django, was at the same time when my grandfather was dying, and we were spending a lot of time over there. And actually, we had left the room, my uncle and I, and left my wife in there alone with my granddad. There's two stories in here, and the one thing he said to her while they were all alone was, "You have very tiny feet." She doesn't. Her feet are average. But I said, "It was on his deathbed, dear. You have tiny feet. It's just now you have to accept that." At the same time, we were talking about, Django was going to be born. And I said to him at one point, I said, I'd love to name him after you, but you have, horrible names. And he went, oh, God, I do. Please. I would not die happy knowing that some poor child would be saddled with any of my names. So we started talking about it. And Django Reinhardt, the guitarist, was a gypsy swing guitarist. Who was kind of a contemporary of my grandfather's. And I said, that's a really cool name. I'd like to name him that kind of as an homage to the musical side of you. My grandfather was a big band musician.
Absolutely.
Very successful. And we had a little chat about it, and he agreed. He goes, okay, that's pretty good. We can go with that one. So Django, for my son, is an homage to my grandfather.
That's beautiful. That's actually a way better story than just being a fan of Franco Nero.
But you got to love Franco. And they're doing another Django movie is coming out soon.
Are they? So one of the things, so if you are a big fan, my dad, brought me up on that stuff. And one of the things that always fascinated me was like over probably 100 just like non-canonical spin-offs of Django. They just named every character Django. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fabulous.
And then Tarantino came back and did Django, the Django movie.
Yeah.
My son was 8 or 9 or something like that when it came out, and we were down at Comic-Con, and he saw the posters. He goes, God, that's great, Django. And they gave him a bunch of free stuff. He said, can I see the movie? And we're like, no. The same name as me. And I went, yeah, no, I know. Not for a while. One day.
Parental guidance.
Finally, he was let down. But what I thought was great was he got kids at school who were saying, were you named after the movie? And he literally had to go, I'm older than the movie. How would that work? My favorite was there was a kid at school in England who had told his mom that he was named after the Star Wars character Jango Fett.
Yes.
And the mom actually came up to my wife on the playground and said, "Is it true that your son is named after Jango Fett?" And she's like, "No."
Oh man. Well, regardless, Django has an amazing name. I love it.
He's a cool dude, and I miss him. He's down in New Orleans working on various things. Film. He's trying to get into film production, so he's down there.
Oh, good for him.
And
Yeah,
really enjoying it. But a young person in New Orleans, how do you not enjoy that?
absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of enjoying your work, the next thing that I wanted to discuss with you is, so if I have this correct, and I've heard you, I think, tell the story a couple of times, but you were 28 years old and you were working as a marketing executive at a company that sold computer accessories, and that's when you realized that you weren't happy, you were making a change.
Yep.
So
Pretty much it.
So at the point, was that the late 80s?
Yeah, that was probably 88 or 89.
Okay,
It was not long after I'd bought my first house.
Okay, so that was
also made it scarier.
Okay, those are the questions I was getting to. So the details behind that I'm very curious about, because I always consider you and Dan like sort of walking embodiments of why you should be chasing your passion, and the lifestyle will come along with that, as opposed to just chasing money.
Yeah.
So when you made that decision, you had a mortgage payment. Obviously, you took a big pay cut.
Yeah.
I know that you had a friend that helped you get an animation portfolio together. But what was the process in between you leaving the job, getting your portfolio together for animation, and then getting that first gig at The Simpsons? Was that a normal job application process and an interview, and you just go through and get it, or how did that come about for you?
Well, I mean, I can give you the whole thing, and I quit because of that fear that if I kept doing it, I was making great money and I was successful at it, and if I kept on the path, it would be very easy to keep doing that, and then I would wake up and I'd be 60,
right,
or as I am now, 62, and stuck in a job that I just didn't care about. And I realized everything I was doing was kind of living for the time that I wasn't working. And I thought, okay, I can't do this. It was a terrible fear that I thought, okay, I might lose the house and everything. But my logic was, I was able to do that once, so clearly I'd be able to do it again. But it was the trade-off of happiness and fear of unhappiness that thought, I'd rather be homeless and happy than in a home I can afford and miserable kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Then there's part of me that's just stupidly optimistic and figured it'll all be fine. But I was lucky enough to have a friend who'd seen my work and helped me get the portfolio together. And it was literally 2 months of me, like a teacher, doing drawings that were assignments.
Yeah.
Saying, you're going to need one of these. You're going to need to show this. I'd work on stuff and he'd give me some critique. And by the end of it, I had a fairly good portfolio together, fortunately, because I grew up taking a lot of drafting classes in high school and a lot of architectural rendering classes, aside from just being a freakishly avid doodler from the time I was in first grade. And the interview itself came about because another friend of mine had a friend who was working on The Simpsons who said, hey, I heard they're looking for background artists, specifically people with good perspective skills. That really was all I had. I had a teacher at Reseda High, Mr. Pelagi, who just beat perspective into us. I know still to this day, know things about perspective that I don't need to know, that nobody really needs to know.
Shout out Mr. Pelagi.
Yeah, go Mr. Pelagi. He was a great teacher. And I went in and had the interview with David Silverman, and he started asking me questions and, doing little drawings and showing him what I knew about perspective. And he just went, yeah, okay, great. Yeah. And we said, we can teach you how animation works, but clearly you've got the skills we need to bring some structure to our layouts. And that's season 2, first show, Blood Feud. First thing I drew was Otto, the bus driver's naked lady mud flaps. Naked lady mud flaps.
It's a good way to break in.
It was perfect.
Man, I love that. That's just, we get by with a little help from our friends,
Yeah. And, it was a big pay cut, but it was enough to where I could make my mortgage payments.
And then you started being happy.
And I immediately began to be happy. I've told this story before. I was there a week. Started on a Monday. I came in the next Monday, and I was coming in early every day. New guy.
Yeah.
Bit early. And I sat down at my desk with my cup of coffee, and the emotion just poured out of me. I started crying. Just like, oh my God, they're going to pay me to do this. It was, joyous tears, but I'm sure some of my coworkers came in and thought, oh, great, the new guy's having a breakdown at his desk. I'm comfortable now. Let's hope he's not disgruntled. But yeah, it was, that to me was kind of everything.
Wow. I love it. If we fast forward a few years, now you're working on Rocko. Do you personally have a favorite episode of Rocko?
Oh yeah, the Wallaby of the West.
Yes,
because that was the first episode that Dan and I together as a team.
Yeah,
I'd originally been with Steve Hillenberg, SpongeBob.
Yep.
And we did the first episode together, Sucker for the Suck-O-Matic, and I can't even remember what the other one was. And then they did a team shuffle and they put Dan and I together. And the first thing we did was Wallaby of the West. And it's where Dan and I realized we were, comedy brothers from another mother. And we wrote our first song at the end of the episode. We kind of finished early. We had a more material than we needed. And we're like, let's write a song. Okay, fuck it.
Yeah.
And we wrote Rocko, the Wallaby of the West. At the end, we're like, oh, we need to work together more.
This song is incredible, by the way.
He came over from down under. He was a real marsupial wonder. Rocko, the Wallaby of the West.
And that's where the beginnings of Phineas came about, because we figured if we wrote a show together and sold it, we'd keep working together.
Yeah. Wow.
And then we didn't for 13 years after we got done with Rocko.
Yeah.
But Rocko had the music element. It had the moment where we did a whole chase with Rocko on a dead horse, which came about because we were bashing around the story. And one of us, and we still don't remember to this day, said, it would be really funny if we could do this whole chase with Rocko on like a dead stuffed horse with wheels on it. And we all laughed. And then one of us went, wait a minute, we could do that.
I'll save you, heifer.
And we boarded the whole thing and timed it. And Dan went and shot it on the animation test camera. And we pitched it and presented it. And it was great. And then it also had my first homage to Jay Ward, the guy who created Rocky and Bullwinkle and George of the Jungle.
Yeah.
We were big fans of his. And it was just a simple gag that the premise of the show was Rocko goes to visit his uncle's cattle ranch and he brings his friend Heifer, the steer, to the cattle ranch. And there's just a great moment where one of the cows on the ranch is leaning up against the fence and he says to Heifer, yo, city boy, come here. And it reminded me of the Fractured Fairy Tale episodes from Jay Ward, where there was all these, they were telling spoof versions of fairy tales, but they all had these New York accents.
Yeah.
The king is a really nice guy. I just love that.
Say, did you ever hear the joke about the traveling ogre who...
No time for that. I gotta go.
That's awesome, man.
It's a very long-winded answer that's my favorite one. It was the first one that Dan and I wrote together.
That's great. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Rocko was pretty notorious, or I guess it is notorious now for the hidden layers of adult jokes that were in there.
What?
Of what jokes do you speak? So
I'm not aware.
And so, for example, like one of the ones that's cut out, I guess, of a lot of is the good, the bad, and the wallaby when Heifer is being milked.
That's the one.
Which is
that's
the one?
First episode.
That's the one.
Wallaby, the good, the bad, and the wallaby was the official name of it. For us, it's always Wallaby West, which is that was us. I think Dan and I have the record for the most post-airing edits. They aired the shows and then later went back and thought, well, that's not a good idea. Cut that out.
Cut that, yeah. What's your opinion on that sort of humor? Do you think that it gets by? I guess a few questions. One, do you think that it gets by today? And two, if not, Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And do you think it was very relevant to sort of the culture of the 90s versus the culture of now?
It was a different time, both for us and for the industry.
Yeah.
And it was a different network. It's like when we went to Disney to do Phineas and Ferb, there was two things. We knew that it wasn't the appropriate place to put in Rocko kind of humor, because that's not what they were looking for. And we weren't trying to get away with anything. I never want to try to, sneakily. And it doesn't build trust. If one of my animators was doing that to me, it'd be like, come on.
Yeah.
Don't be juvenile. And the second part of that it was really kind of a challenge to say, could we make a really funny, fun, edgy cartoon that didn't rely on all that double entendre and, the jerks and idiots and meanness and stupidity being, really easy humor. It's harder to do it without those tools.
Sure.
But really satisfying. But when we were doing Rocko, there was a bunch of things. We were all young. Somebody gave us the keys to the hot rod. Basically, it was like, whee! And they were trying at that time to get attention. And we were on the same network with John Kricfalusi, who was doing Ren and Stimpy.
Right.
And he was really pushing boundaries. In fact, he was
for sure
so hard that Nickelodeon was a little angry.
Right.
Well, not a little angry. They were fucking livid.
A lot angry, yeah.
And, he was getting away with stuff. We were trying to get noticed, both as, cartoons, as, a new form, what we're doing now.
Right.
We were making them the old-fashioned way, like the old cartoons used to be made, outline and just crazy storyboard artists writing this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think the network was really happy for us to push a bit because it got attention.
Yeah.
And I've always said we benefited from the fact that things were going so crazy over at John's studio that they would, every so often they'd look in on us and going, are you guys literally on fire? No? Great. We'll be back. And then when Ren and Stimpy finally ended, they came back in to look at what we were doing and they were like, oh my God. And that's when a lot of this stuff got cut out that we'd done. We're like, we've been doing this for years, guys. Sorry you missed it.
That's what's up.
But it was a time when everybody was trying to get noticed.
Right.
And that was getting us noticed. And Nickelodeon really was kind of the naughty network at the time.
Yeah, I agree.
That was what they were leaning on. And it was kind of an opposite reaction to Disney. But I would never propose or promote doing that kind of show at Disney.
Right.
In the same way that if we did a Disney style show on Nickelodeon back then, it would have died a death.
Wouldn't have worked. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned Ren and Stimpy.
Proud of what we did, but it was a different time.
It was a different time, isn't it? Yeah. I'm proud of what you did too. I mean, those are some of my, my fondest memories, especially the fact that you keep watching these shows and it really was, or at least maybe I was a naive child, I don't know, but they really did fly right over my head consuming them as a kid. And then when you watch them now, you're like, oh, that's amazing.
I remember one of the weirder notes we got, and it wasn't us that did it, but it was one of our shows. It was a hospital scene. And in the background, one of the little snippets of Walla that was recorded, just, background noise.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the voiceover guys, you could hear it. It's like, paging Dr. Philiac, Dr. Necrophiliac. And, we got the note saying, take that out. And we're like, well, nothing to do with us, but the sound guys can take it out.
Yeah. And
my thought was, it wasn't like it was an instructional. We didn't define what it was. 99.999% of kids would have never noticed it.
No clue, yeah.
And if that led a kid to find out what it was, that would have been a really weird conversation with their parents.
Right.
But it was literally a background noise that nobody would have heard. So you can choose what you talk to your kids about.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean I didn't think there was things in there that looking back on it, you go, yeah, it was probably a little out of line. But,
Listen, I think it was for better or for worse, I think it was an important part of like 90s pop culture. It was important. It certainly was an important part of our childhood. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have changed that. So you mentioned Ren and Stimpy, and I was curious as to, at that time, you know, when you were at Nickelodeon, what was your relationship like, if any, with your peers on other shows? So like concurrently you had Rugrats, Doug, like you mentioned, Ren and Stimpy. Was there any interaction at all?
Not really. I mean, we were at a separate studio building. We were making, it wasn't until Rocko was kind of ending that the guys from Hey Arnold came in.
Right.
But most of the time we were kept pretty separate. Dan and I did a freelance board for Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, too. That's tight.
Season. It was the one where they were, you know, snowed in.
Yes.
That was, but we didn't really interact.
Okay. Okay. What were your favorite shows at the time that were on concurrently?
I think ours was the only one I wanted to watch.
Nice. Love it.
You know, I have to say, and this is, I've got my issues with John Kay, but those first few episodes of Ren and Stimpy were just hysterical.
Yeah.
They were really, really funny. And I just enjoyed the shit out of those. And that was, you know, one of the things that kind of, you know, gave us hope that we could push to crazy different areas and be a little wacky and insane. So I loved those.
Yeah.
I don't know if it aged well, and when it went on, it kind of lacked some of that wonderfulness, but those first few episodes were spectacular. And later on, things like Invader Zim.
Yeah.
Again, those first few episodes of Invader Zim were fantastic. I was disappointed between the difference with Family Dog, between the pilot episode and the rest of the series, because the pilot episode, oh my God, it was good. So good. And that's what I was watching.
Nice.
And trying to emulate.
I hear you. What were your favorite cartoons when you were a kid, when you were growing up?
I was the, you know, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck kid.
Yeah,
growing up.
hell yeah, hell yeah. Well, same. I mean, yeah.
The biggest was all the Jay Ward stuff.
Right, you mentioned.
I grew up watching Rocky and Bullwinkle, George of the Jungle, Tom Slick, Super Chicken. I just thought those were phenomenal. Again, because they did the thing that we really tried to do when we made Phineas, was we would never cut a joke simply because somebody said it was too smart for the kids.
Right.
You don't get to cut a joke for that.
Yeah.
You can cut a joke because you think it's inappropriate or because it violates legal things, but it's okay to be smart.
Yeah.
It's okay that you're writing jokes for the adult. And I remember as a kid watching Rocky and Bullwinkle and thinking, knowing that a percentage of the jokes in there were for the adults. And
right.
It made me feel like I was more mature.
Yeah.
And the story I've told a million times was they did an episode where Rocky and Bullwinkle were looking for the ruby yacht of Omar Khayyam. And my grandmother laughed. I was over at grandma's house and I turned around and I said, "Why is that funny?" And she went and got the book, The Ruby Yacht of Omar Khayyam, showed it to me. And I was like, "It's a real book?" Oh, it's cool. I didn't read it, but I felt like I went to school armed with this cool, special insider knowledge.
Right.
Like, you know, tell your friends on the playground, "You're watching the Rocky and Bullwinkle? Yeah, you know the Ruby Yacht? Actual book. Yeah." Most people don't know that, but you know.
Yeah, my grandma's got it. She's got a copy.
If it's made out of rubies, then this must be the ruby yacht of Omar Khayyam.
And it was something that my grandmother and I got to share. And it made me feel like, you know, that was really cool that I knew something that was part of the adult world.
Oh, yeah. No,
and it was just funny on its own.
Yeah. I relate to you there 100% because I recall, I mean, my dad is responsible for all my exposure to different media growing up. And when he would watch the cartoons that, you know, that were on for me, and he would understand jokes and then explain like things that were being movies that were being parodied that I hadn't seen. Then he'd be like, "Oh, that's a Terminator joke. Let's see this. You know, let me show this movie." Like that kind of a thing. Yeah. So I always made me feel special too.
I went from Rocko to, I was actually at Hanna-Barbera for a while during the beginning of a reboot of Johnny Quest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I did some episodes of Dumb and Dumber They had an animated
Yeah,
show.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And then I went from there over to Film Roman. We did a Christmas special with Toby Bluth, a beautiful Christmas special that they took it away from him at the end, which was really a shame because it was a gorgeous special, and they kind of finished it really quickly, and it didn't have Toby was an amazing storyteller. He really is a legend. And his brother Don did a lot of movies, but I've always felt that Don was kind of better at sales and politics than Toby was.
All right. Okay.
And Toby was really a more gifted storyteller, but he had no politics, which is why I think in the end they took it away from him. He was an obstinate cuss. But then I ended up on King of the Hill.
Right.
And
right. Okay.
I boarded on the pilot for King of the Hill, did boarding on the first couple episodes, and then I moved over to design. I was designing all the cars, and apparently my car drawings were the only ones that Mike approved. So they asked if I'd go do props, and I'm like, well, as long as you don't cut my pay.
Right. Yeah.
So I did props on there for I think 4 seasons, and that's when I went to London. A guy called and said, "I've loved your work on Rocko, and I'm doing an animated sketch comedy show for the BBC."
When you made that move, was that something that was very exciting for you, or because I know you're born and raised in SoCal mostly, right?
About half a mile from where I'm sitting right now at St. John's Hospital.
Right.
I am
Okay.
one of the natives.
So that being the case, was that move to London nerve-wracking for you at all, or were you just kind of like, this is the next opportunity, I'm there?
I love England. I lived there for a year in 1980.
Okay.
I was going to go bum around Europe for 3 months. I got to the southwest of England, little place called Exeter. There's a university there. Got a job detailing cars during the day and working at a nightclub.
Nice.
The nightclub's still there. I just redid their logo a few years ago.
Get out. That's awesome.
Timepiece Wine Bar and Discotheque. Hi, guys. And so I'd been there lived there for almost a full year the first time. I've been back several times. I just love England, and I was a big Monty Python fan. And one of the courses I took in my 8 months at college was history of England before I dropped out. And so it was easy. I was like, yeah, I desperately want to go live there again and see it. Sadly, my wife had just moved from there.
Wow. What timing?
Did not want to go back. And I said, it's just 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we were there for 6.5 years. So that didn't work out.
Quite a stint.
But I loved it. I got to go work up in Manchester, bought a house there, worked on August the Mr. Hell Show, sketch comedy show, Bounty Hamster, Postman Pat, NG Benji. I just had a wonderful, wild time. And I would probably still be there if Dan didn't call one day and say, hey, remember when I pitched Disney 9 months ago and they said they didn't want Phineas and Ferb?
Yeah.
They changed their mind. Would you like to come back? And I'm like, yep, I'm packing.
On my way.
Yep, we're coming. Save me a spot.
If you were 28 right now in 2023 and working at that marketing job and had that same revelation, what do you think that you would have to do differently to break into the industry, if it would be different at all?
It's a different industry. Mostly, I think, in the fact that it's when I quit the computer industry, I vowed never to touch another computer. That was my pencils forever, never buy one. Hate computers. And I think it was only about 4 or 5 years later that the whole industry started to computerize.
Right.
So I kind of had, okay, fine. Fortunately, I had a leg up because I came out of that industry. It was much easier for me to kind of get up to speed. And I was familiar with CAD programs and everything. But you can't really expect to get a job in this industry now if you don't know the basic, the Photoshops, the, Toon Broom, Storyboard Pro, drawing programs, editing programs. You really have to have that, or you're just not qualified. So in that way, I think it would have been harder. I would have had to have, gotten access to machines to learn how to use them in software.
Right.
Whereas when I did it, I just grabbed a bunch of pencils and a whole bunch of paper and sat there drawing my brains out until I had enough quality drawings to go show somebody.
Right.
There you go. There's my portfolio. Now your portfolios are all online. You have to build a website, and you've got, that would have required a whole other level of knowledge that I didn't have.
Right.
So it would have made it harder for people like me to break in. But there is nothing that will take you farther than unbridled confidence and enthusiasm and ambition. If you want that gig, if you truly want it, that will shine through. Eventually somebody will go, this guy's been calling me for 6 months. And he's not, as long as he's not coming off as a creepy stalkery guy.
Yeah. Fine line.
Somebody's going to go, this guy wants it. And I'm the same when I'm hiring people. When I find folks that, articulate, clearly intelligent, capable, and they dedicate themselves to staying on your radar and to looking for opportunities and are literally like, hey man, I'll come make coffee. Tell me what I need to do to get involved in this. Those people stand out. And when you end up getting slots open, those are the people you call. And I can't manufacture that in someone.
Right.
But I can teach them how to use the software and what we need to do for animation. And I can have an incredibly qualified guy who knows all the software, but if he doesn't care about it, if he doesn't want it, I can't fix that. And more than likely, our time together is going to be short.
Right.
Because there's a ton of people out there who it is their dream. They want it more than anything.
Absolutely.
And I can't blame them because I've tried everything. And this is the best gig I've ever had. Okay, if somebody wants to give me a job as a professional race car driver, I'd consider making a change because that's really fun. But it's frighteningly impractical. So other than that, I think this is as good as it gets. And the truth is, at 62, nobody is going to call me with a ride in a race car. Great. Now I'm depressed.
Hey, no reason we can't hit the track together someday. You know what I mean?
I think I got another celebrity NASCAR race coming up, possibly in May. The guy called me and said, do you think you can get some more crazy folks willing to drive a race car? And I'm like, oh yeah, I can find you a bunch.
That's amazing.
And then we got to I've been racing a couple of times a year in the 24 Hours of Lemons, which is a racing series where you're allowed to spend about $500 on the car.
Oh, wow.
And somebody I know fixed up an old 1973 MG BGT, and we've been racing that.
That's
incredible. Just idiocy.
That's incredible. That's where do you race it?
Oh, tracks all over. Button Willow out near Bakersfield, up at Sears Point, which is now called Sonoma Raceway. They do it at Willow Springs, and there's tons of courses. Go online and look up 24 Hours of Lemons. And if you want to see our car, I think there's still pictures of it we have an Instagram account called Team Yeah Baby.
Okay.
Because we built the car. It was painted school bus yellow, so I did a bunch of Austin Powers drawings on it.
Nice. Flower power.
It's a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. Hopefully I'll get up there someday.
It's good.
Yeah. I always see these dope classic cars on your Instagram, and I always wonder, like, oh man, is that like, does he have a fleet of classic cars just like hanging out at the crib? Or
I wish.
Okay,
I'm down to one. I have a 1958 Triumph TR3, little British convertible sports car.
Okay, but so that's incredible.
It's fun.
It's a beautiful.
I love. It's my daily driver. It's the one I drive to work. Rain or shine, there's no heater in it. It really doesn't even have side windows, so you have to own a raincoat to drive it. But I love every moment I'm in it.
Yep.
And the one I had before that, that I ended up finally getting rid of, I just didn't have room anymore, was a 1963 Falcon Ranchero, lowered in primer black and white with ghost pinstripes, big skull steering wheel. That was great.
Wow. What it must have hurt your feelings to get rid of that.
Yes, it did. Brutally. But you can't, there's only so much room you have, and then you start having to rent storage space for these things, and then you're not enjoying them.
Right.
The Triumph, I literally get in every day and drive it to work, and it's fantastic.
And it's a pleasure. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I've seen the pictures on your Instagram, and it's beautiful. I was curious as to how often you get out surfing because I know you have a very busy schedule, but it seems from Instagram that you're still a very avid surfer. So how often do you?
Yeah. It's been tough because of all the storms. I'm one of those people. I've kind of reached the age when I'm really cautious about making sure you stay out of the water after a big storm, because it does get dirty out there. And
yeah.
I have responsibilities at the studio, so I can't cavalierly just go, I picked up a disease in the ocean. Sorry, I won't be in.
Can't make it.
So it's been a kind of a tough period. And then I had some injuries before that. But Norm, like something like a month and a half ago, my son was out for 3 or 4 days, and we went surfing every morning. And,
oh, nice.
Usually I'm at least 2 days a week.
Okay.
Sometimes 3.
That's
get up in because it's literally a 3-minute bike ride down the road to the breakwater, and I can get out first thing in the morning, have a good hour session, get back, take a shower, and get to work on time.
2 times a week is impressive, man. That's what's
it's great. It's
when
easy.
I moved out here from New York about 10 years ago, and so I had never been surfing, and so top of mind when I came out to LA, I was like, yo, when I get out there, I'm gonna be a surfer, just like that's gonna be my life, bro. I'm gonna surf 24/7. You know, Swampy, I still have not ever done it yet.
Oh, get out.
Yeah, I gotta get out.
I have a teacher I can hook you up with.
Please, run me that info. I need it. Run me that info.
Kia Kitmido.
Oh, He's
a good guy. I'll send you all the info.
Okay.
He's a great dude. He works with anybody. He's usually works out of Venice.
Okay.
I've known his sister since the early Rocko's Modern Life days.
Wow.
Quinn.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. But Kia's a really lovely dude. I've recommended a bunch of people take lessons from him, and everybody has a good time, and everybody at least gets up. If you decide you like it, call me. I can hook you up with a board. I've got way too many.
Okay.
We'll make it work.
That sounds good.
And then we'll get you to come out and volunteer for a walk on water, and you can take special needs kids out surfing.
Man, I would love to do that. So now that's a good motivation for me to get better.
Best days ever. Go onto the website, www.awalkonwater.org. Take a look at the work we do. I've been with them for over 10 years now. I'm the head of water safety, and we take special needs kids and their families out for a whole day at the beach with surfing. It's the best.
That's beautiful, man. I will check it out. A burning question that is going to be on everyone's mind, and of course, maybe it's a very brief answer, but what, if anything, are you able to share about the Phineas and Ferb reboot? Not reboot, our additional episodes. I mean, it's not right. You couldn't.
I think it's and we have to get into deeper talks. But a little while ago, very much on the QT, Disney kind of said, "Would you guys just want to make more of them?" Dan and I have been like, yeah, anytime.
Yeah, let us know.
Just have to ask us. We've been waiting. It's, we don't greenlight these things. So this has been up to you forever. But, if you weren't around when it originally ended, we were happy to make more episodes. We just didn't want to make a bunch of tentpole specials.
Right.
Which is why we asked if we could do those last 2 episodes, Act Your Age and The Last Day of Summer, because we thought, most cartoons don't ever get the nice
wrap up
to properly wrap a series like that. It was so emotional. But they said, "Do you want to do some more?" And we're like, "Yeah, happy to."
Yeah.
Now we have to figure it out, because I'm in the middle of doing a series for Disney Junior called Hey AJ, based on a series of books written by Marcellus Bennett, the football player. His beautiful books that he wrote for his daughter so that she could have adventure, imagination, story, picture books with a little girl that looked like her. We're doing that. And Dan, it just got greenlit for another season of Hamster and Gretel. Which I get to do a nice little voice on from time to time, which is fun. So we both called each other. It's like, yeah, keen to do it. When are we going to find the time?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll work it out. We're working that out with Disney. We're just trying to figure out schedules and stuff. But as of now, it's really just let's go make more.
Yeah.
And now we get to do kind of some of the specials and long form stuff mixed in there that we've really wanted to do. We had a couple of scripts that we've held back that are very near and dear to us. We were thinking, now we get to do them.
Now's the time.
So it'll be fun. And, you know, figuring out if we want to do the next installment of Meep. Did you hear the story of the Meep episodes, of why we have those?
No.
So John and Piero, I think, who wrote the original Meep episode, at the end of the episode, they did that fake trailer. So I think it was Meepless in Seattle, and then they did Meet Me in St. Louis, or when I can't remember the order anymore. But that trailer was simply just a bunch of nonsensical, unconnected. None of it made any sense. It was never meant to.
Right.
And then everybody was like, "This is an amazing episode. When do we get to see the next one?" And we're like, "Oh, it was a joke. We didn't." So eventually we went back to John and Piero and said, "Okay, now you have to write an episode that includes all of those clips."
Includes all the meeping, yeah.
and they did. And then at the end of that one, they did another fake trailer for the next episode.
Wow.
So it's clear now that we're going to have to do that too.
Absolutely.
I'm terrified to go back and look at the fake trailer that they made to see what it is we're going to have to incorporate in the story.
That will serve as a very fun prompt. Like, oh, got to hit all these points.
Post that up on the wall and figure out, how do we connect this stuff? What were we thinking?
Yeah. I love when stuff like that happens. That's
the nice thing is so many of the original crew is still around and keen to do it. And all of our voice actors, I think the only person we've lost is Thomas Sangster. And for the film, we had David Arrigo Jr. come in, who is an amazing Ferb for us and one of the most enthusiastic folks you'd ever want to meet, aside from being ludicrously talented. And everybody's back on. We're getting the band back together.
The band back together. Swampy, are you, I mean, obviously I know that you're on TikTok. I mean, I don't know how much time you spend on the app, but are you aware of the amount of little sound bites from Phineas and Ferb that just have become huge trends?
Yeah. I'm not doing a lot of TikTok content. I did some, and then I'm running a studio. We just opened an overseas anime. So I have a studio now in Manchester, England.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
With about 60 people working over there animating Hey AJ. So now we have Surfing Giant US, where I'm sitting, and Surfing Giant Europe over in Manchester. So there's a lot of plate spinning.
Yeah.
So I don't make a lot of TikTok content, but I love going on every so often and seeing the craziness.
Yeah.
The last one was the amount of squirrels in my pants.
The squirrels in my pants went crazy on TikTok.
God. The people doing that thing with the, and the dancing.
Yeah.
There was, and Lizzo did one.
Yep.
At a concert, and Rents, and Jimmy, what's his name? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
The impact is huge. Well, Swampy, if there were one thing from the 90s that you could bring back to this time, what would it be?
Oh, the 90s. Let's do more Rockos, man.
Let's do more Rockos. I love it. Did Puma come up with a pair of those kicks? Because
you seen the Rocko?
I seen them, but they sold out in my size immediately.
Yeah, I got to call up Carlos.
Yeah, I saw that Carlos,
the voice of Rocko. Carlos would be the one to hook us up, man.
Yeah, I was great. I was like, at least they should have given you guys, make sure they have your size in every. They had the Rockos, the Filberts, the Heifers, incredible stuff, man.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, Swampy, I want to just share this with you right now, but I want to share it for all our listeners to know. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when I moved here, I was very fresh in LA when we first met. And you were really the first person that was part of an industry that I so badly wanted to be a part of, to really give me the time of day, to really be so generous with your time, and to really chat with me and make me feel like it was possible, make me feel like I was important. And that impact from a conversation that we had in 2013, this is 10 years later. And I
think it was over at UCLA.
It was over at UCLA. It was over in a classroom at UCLA.
Good morning, Agent P. The evil Dr. Doofenshmirtz is up to no good again. And Carl, where are my trousers?
I mean, it's really stayed with me, Swampy. I just want to let you know how much that conversation meant to me, especially from meeting someone that you look up to so much. That interaction can oftentimes like really make or break your motivation or your emotional well-being. And that I left that conversation feeling so happy that, wow, man, Swampy Marsh just had a chat with me and told me that, yeah, this is what you got to do, man. You can do it. And I was like, that is incredible. And the fact that you were so genuine that you were like, yeah, if you need anything, reach out. I'm happy to give you advice and whatever. And I'd reach out, and then you would. And I would be like, wow, this guy was not kidding. I just want to say,
don't let that get out. People are going to start thinking I'm a nice guy all the time.
We don't want to start that nasty rumor.
Can't have that. That would be the death of me in Hollywood. I'm so thank you.
No, thank you, Swampy, from the bottom of my heart, really.
So nice watching what you do. To me, the capper to all of that, the payoff for that conversation was walking down the press line for the big D23 thing.
Yeah.
Have you there? And that was just frighteningly cool. It was like, oh, here you are.
Yeah.
We did it!
Swampy, I can't thank you enough again for your time today and chatting with me. And until next time, I'm all grown up.
Psych!
Yes!
My monogram.
The monogram psych, baby. I love it.
I'm on.